Hi everybody, a very warm welcome to my channel, Nelly the Narcissist. Welcome back to all of my current subscribers, and for anybody that is tuning in that's new, then you need to know that I'm not a narcissist, but Nelly is the character that I portray in my comedy skits to raise awareness about narcissistic abuse and relationships. And if you haven't seen those, then I invite you to go check them out, and the link is in the description box below. In today's video, I want to be talking about a theme that actually comes up a great deal in relationships with malignant narcissists, and that is their use of dark witchcraft and the occult to snare, bind, and entrap their victims. A few years ago, if you'd actually asked me if this was existing and possible, I would have laughed and I would have said, absolutely no way. On the surface level, especially if you're not informed, most narcissists and even psychopaths, they seem normal. They seem like everyday people, and it's not until you get closer to them, and especially when you're living together with them, do you realize not only are you dealing with a person that is mentally ill with a cruel and sadistic character, but you come to the knowledge that there is something else going on behind the curtain that's pulling the strings. Very weird, scary, and dark things happen around them, and it's not normal, and they're not even on a human level. For people that don't believe it, there are many survivors of malignant narcissists that have shared supernatural experiences, and there are many patterns within their survivor stories which really indicate that there's something else going on. I've spoken a great deal about my own experiences on this channel, and if you haven't seen those videos, then I'm going to link them also below. But by the end of this very disastrous, dark and deep entanglement that I had with a malignant narcissist, I realized that there was much more going on than meets the human eye. There was a strong malevolent spiritual force definitely working through the narcissist, and the longer that I was around, the weaker and the sicker that I was becoming. And this is a big sign of a lower level spiritual demonic influence, by the way. Although I was aware that if I didn't leave, I probably wouldn't survive, but I could not leave. And although the psychologists are going to bring this down to, a trauma bond, a chemical reaction, and they will isolate it to the brain and the body, I know that there is a spiritual energetic hold over victims of malignant narcissists, particularly if you live with them. I can personally look back at my entanglement, and we can all wonder as survivors, how do they get to doing what they do and taking that kind of power from us? And it's got to do actually with our free will and how we may have unknowingly entered a covenant with the narcissist. So in today's video, I want to make you aware of any kind of contract or agreement that you may have signed, or you may sign or give your verbal consent to, because with malignant narcissists that are using occult knowledge, they can use these agreements as an admission of your free will, which they need from you. This isn't to scare anybody. This is just to give people more knowledge of how it may look and how it might work, because knowledge is power, and learning about this is very empowering. Because narcissists, their power and their witchcraft only really works when you're unaware. But when we are aware, we can reclaim ourselves. And with our own will, we can say, I don't accept that. So I want to talk about the various contracts or agreements that they may try to lock you in, to bind you together, way beyond the human level. And of course, all of these things that I'm going to speak about today do also have a physical, worldly level. But I want to speak about how the spiritual is also interwoven. Just before I begin, if you appreciate this video today and you'd like to help me out, then please do like the video, share it with anybody that you think it might help. Comment your thoughts down below if you resonate, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because all of these things, they really help me to get these messages out to people that might really need to hear them. So I'd like to start with a personal story, as I often do. Now, I remember early on in my relationship with the narcissist, something struck me as very odd. We were both sat on a bench one day, and I was asked by the narcissist, would you like to fall in love consciously? And as soon as this was said, before I could even give my answer, the narcissist wanted to shake my hand. Now, this memory stayed in my mind because not only did I find it a very strange thing to ask somebody, it was even weirder to shake hands. This scene has replayed in my mind, I can't tell you how many times. And I believe that I've replayed that scene because something felt so weird and so wrong about it. Even though on the surface, fairly innocent, I thought, okay, this is a little bit eccentric. But honestly, I think on a deeper level, something really sinister happened in that moment. And I honestly believe that I had entered right then and there an unknown covenant with the narcissist. And whatever I agreed to in that moment, I wasn't agreeing to falling in love consciously. The narcissist had very different plans for me. But by shaking hands and giving my verbal consent, this sealed the fate of the abuse and the situation that was going to follow for me. And at that moment, I'd actually just handed away my power and autonomy. Looking back, I know that this was my submission of a verbal agreement. The handshake was just a closing and sealing of this deal. It was the same as like signing a contract or making a pact. That's it. The trouble is, I wasn't given a paper document to read and there was no fine print to evaluate. The presentation of falling in love consciously obviously was not the basis of this agreement. But the covenant actually was to take away my free will and to use me for whatever purpose the narcissist had. And this truly is evil because nobody is ever aware what they're giving over. They're tricked, deceived, and coerced basically into their own entrapment. Any level of relationship with any narcissist is an entrapment. It's a binding on all levels of you, mind, body, emotions, and spirit. And this is why it is so necessary to detangle yourself thread by thread, because they are very fine. They're totally invisible to human eyes. The narcissist binds you very underhandedly. There is nothing taking place in plain sight. It's all going on underneath the table, behind the scenes. Because with narcissists and psychopathic narcissists that I so often speak about, there are very much two sides. There's the lie versus the reality. The lie is what they tell you that the relationship is about. And then there's what's really going on. If you knew how they were using your energy and how they were trespassing and trampling all over your free will and your spirit, you would be shocked and you would end it and run. And that's why they keep up the facade to pretend that your relationship is really, it's just a regular human relationship. But it's not. It's not even a regular toxic relationship. Listen to this, because this is very important for you to know. This is a free will and soul violation. That is why it feels so deep. That is why it feels so yucky. They have penetrated you so deeply, and they've parasited off of you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. This is totally wrong, and wrong is not even the correct word. This is the worst kind of abuse that's possible to a human. And the invisibility of the narcissist's evil nature and their abuse that they get away with also goes towards making this the worst kind of criminality. This is a spiritual criminal. And these, people, they defy laws of the heavenly realms. We can all do bad things, but this goes beyond. This is next level. And you can't tell me that this is unconscious. They know exactly what they are walking you into because they're the ones laying the trap. And once you're in that trap, they do everything that they can to keep you tied up and never getting away, if that's their intention. I didn't realize at the time, although I believe our bodies know it, of course, on that deep intuitive knowing, we can feel it. Narcissistic abuse, when the abuser is that malignant narcissist, is very close in many ways to sadistic ritual abuse. Now, at one stage, I didn't have a clue that this even existed because I lived a fairly sheltered existence. I never considered these things. I would have found them far-fetched. But it's not so far-fetched as what one would think is just a conspiracy theory. There's a lot more information. There's a lot more survivors that have come forward, and this information is coming out. However, it's still something that people do not want to believe. They don't want to look at. They don't want to even, accept for a second that this exists in the world. We would rather just say, this is a conspiracy. these people are liars. However, what I see in sadistic, ritualistic abuse and the abuse that we go through with malignant narcissists, there are so many crossovers. In fact, they are almost the same thing. Brainwashing and mind control, they're actually key elements, and we're groomed into these relationships to serve as slaves for individuals that we must obey by giving up our free will and handing it over to them. But of course, in relationships with psychopathic narcissists, you're going to be tricked into handing it over, which is not ethical at all. But why would they care about ethics or morality? They don't. A narcissist won't ask you directly for it, but they're going to go about covert ways to get you to hand it over to them. So it won't be overt as what they ask in cults. A narcissistic relationship, which Richard Grannon has already laid the groundwork for, he says, is a cult of one. And really, the malignant narcissist is a representative, a key figure for the dark side, has got very cruel and sadistic intentions for your life and soul. On exiting the relationship, I had this very strong feeling like the narcissist wanted my soul. And a lot of them are not going to accept you getting away and become actually very dangerous and unhinged when you do try to exit. And many survivors have had the same awareness that the narcissist wanted their soul. And of course, that feeling was accurate. They do want your soul. And then you can ask yourself the question, why would they want my soul? And we can only answer that question really if we understand this on a spiritual level of who they represent and what we represent to them. To represent the dark one and to do what these narcissists do and be how these narcissists are, you can't have your moral integrity or humanity intact. Now we may ask, where's the human? Where's the human gone? There's a spiritual corruption, and they are all at varying levels of this corruption. So what does a person need to trade in order to really turn to the dark side? Well, I'm pretty sure you have to trade your soul. You have to give it up. So as many people believe, the narcissist has also made a covenant. They agreed, because you have to make an agreement in order to be used. And just as the narcissist made a covenant, we are also expected to make a covenant with the narcissist. Although, like I said, that agreement will be in disguise for something that it's really not. And this will be designed to be a binding clause to restrict you and keep you obligated to the narcissist's needs of you. And this is often imposed through brainwashing, a lot of emotional manipulation, and gaslighting, obviously, of your reality. This is that lasting obligation that we feel so tied after we have physically even left the relationship. We feel like the narcissist needs us. We may even feel like we need the narcissist. That's a lie. That's a projection. And in my opinion, the biggest lie that they've actually implanted to keep us bound through that trauma bond is the belief that the narcissist is so vulnerable. It's like a child that would be, you'd be a very bad person, very guilty, shameful person to leave or abandon them. And I believe that is the lie of this covenant, this entrapment of you on a soul level, when the truth is you're not bound by them or to them. You've got no responsibility for who they are or how they live. There are a few ways that narcissists can actually bind and entrap us spiritually. Now, narcissists, they can use legal and social ties, like obviously marriage, papers, business agreements. Children are also powerful tools of entrapment to control and manipulate people. Now, these are also practical anchors that make leaving or asserting your independence feel very complicated or risky or impossible. And I've seen how malignant narcissists are able to take full advantage of these actual practical anchors for their spiritual witchcraft as well. I've seen how malignant narcissists are able to take full advantage of these actual practical anchors for their dark spiritual witchcraft too. Marriage is the most obvious binding of two people that we have on this human planet, I think. And it offers narcissists a great deal of hidden benefits. But it doesn't even need to be as far as marriage, of course, because any kind of contract that you can be coerced into signing for a seemingly innocent and small thing can be used against you energetically as a binding. And it could be as simple as a phone contract where you're both tied to a clause. These are physical layers that can strengthen their occult power. And with written contracts and agreements, I believe it's a lot about having your names tied together. And this tool has been used in witchcraft for centuries. It's centuries old. Narcissists will also use verbal agreements where they will ask you for your obedience or your loyalty, and they'll mask it as love. They may ask you, promise me this or promise me that. And remember, it's like I said, they're actively targeting people that are loyal, true to their word, people who take these kinds of agreements very seriously. So even a verbal agreement can be very powerful for them to keep somebody in chains. They will weaponize your loyalty and they will use every single tactic to create bondage between the pair of you. Keyword is bondage and entrapment. Remember, you're not meant to be a separate person in their mind. You are their property. They own you, and therefore they need to bring you into them and shape you from the inside out. So you're going to consider everything that you think and everything that you do through the filter of them, because you are there to serve their purpose. What I'd like to say, because I know a lot of people have experienced it, let's take also into consideration, the spiritual and religious notions of our free will. Free will is a spiritual and divinely God-given part of a human being. Both benevolent and malevolent energies, by the way, and spirits are aware of this. One might wonder, why does an evil, malevolent entity care about it? It's not like they care about it. It's just the fact, I believe, that there are some spiritual universal laws that they are also bound by. Therefore, they require our consent. They need us with our own free will to choose it and say yes to it. Then you see, it's our responsibility. But let's return to Richard Grannon, something that he said. He said, we can't say yes to something, we can't give our consent if we don't know what we're consenting to. Well, true, but the narcissist is not going to give us the real version of the truth. They just need us to say yes. They need our spiritual consent. Our yes is very necessary because of our free will. And even the dark forces, like I said, are aware of this. They just need our yes. They're not going to present the small print. And yeah, it is hugely misleading, which makes it completely unethical. But the rules of engagement for demons is just to get the yes, however they can get it. We just need a yes. That's because, from their perspective then, they haven't done anything wrong. They never forced you. You said yes to it. Even if you were seduced, deceived or tempted, you chose it. For them, that's the moral and spiritual rule. They haven't broken anything. They just found a way around it. Just like the vampire, basically, that needs an invitation. It can't come in without you saying, come on in. So first, the narcissist coerces you through that deception, seduction usually, if it's romantic. And then they need to find a way to entrap you. And I was bound financially, that was my entrapment, but it's different for everybody. And pretty much all the time, it's not just one chain of entrapment, it's several that work together on all the levels: emotional, mental, physical, material, spiritual, everything. This is why I've always felt that the psychology is not telling us everything, because in mainstream psychology, we're given the idea that these cycles of narcissistic abuse, particularly, the love bomb, is set up with a kind of an innocent unconsciousness from the perspective of the actual narcissist. You see, this is not what I found, nor many others. In fact, we saw that the love bomb and idealization was a setup to get you into a trap, because the narcissist sees something in you beyond what mainstream psychology calls narcissistic supply. Instead, they see your energy, your spirit, your life energy, and they want and need you to grant them deep access to you. And they need to obviously con you into giving up what they need from you on a spiritual level, because you'd never give it otherwise. Because let's face it, if they tell you, I want ownership of your soul and I'm going to enslave you and spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically violate you, you're obviously going to run. So I don't see narcissists as quite so innocent as what psychology paints them to be. This, in my opinion, is very sinister, it's very disturbing, it's very unethical, and it's actually sick. That handshake that I made was so misleading, and that was a symbolic moment because it really was essential for the narcissist to get that consent. Why would you need to shake hands for let's fall in love? Now, in a covenant with the devil, there are stages, one's the offer, and then there's the price and the consequences. So number one, the offer was made when the narcissist said to me that day on that bench, would you like to fall in love consciously? The pact was then sealed through getting my handshake. The price that I paid basically was granting permission to a parasite to invade and enter my system, to take complete control of me in body and spirit, and to use and siphon my energy to abuse and exploit me in every single way possible, and to make me forget who I am and reduce me to a shell of my former self, a loss of identity and free will. And the consequences of losing yourself is becoming a slave to somebody else, their will, their egocentric drives for power that are totally based upon harming other people for personal gain and sadistic pleasure. And they do pick and choose very loyal, morally just people that do feel really bad and don't want to break their loyalty to the narcissist, even though it's destructive to them. This is the mind trick that narcissists will play upon people. So we all need to be pretty much aware of, spoken oaths, handshakes, even blood deals, because it might sound weird, but these are all common occurrences. I'm not joking that I hear from survivors of malignant narcissists. And I really need to bring attention to these things. And everything that I've spoken about, they're all contracts that could be on a soul level. For although, you wouldn't associate a contract or a legal document, with your name and the narcissist as a soul contract, for the narcissist, I believe that it can act as one. Any kind of document in physical form that actually binds you together is one way that these spiritual forces are able to keep you in bondage. And basically it's a spell. In the same way, you can put a ring of protection around yourself, and it's been practiced also for centuries. So too can be placing two names inside of a circle act as a way to bind you together, if it is created with that kind of intention. So if you knew the amount of malignant narcissists that have inbuilt really weird occult knowledge, you'd be shocked. And I speak to survivors all of the time that share crazy details about this theme that I see all the time, and I witnessed it for myself. On a material level, obviously this stands to benefit narcissists also by giving them access to your energy through different means like your finances and the ability to control you through that. But it's more than on a 3D level. It's so much more. A very, very early comedy skit that I made, and it's one of my favorite ones because it's totally silent. I'm going to link it somewhere, either above or below or both. I get across how it all starts off so sweet and fun in the love bomb, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the narcissist slips you a little contract to sign, all with a big smile on their faces. And even though I portray that Dan actually reads the physical contract, narcissists are not going to make that contract visible. And the contract I'm talking about is soul bondage and ownership of you. And have a look at that comedy skit if you haven't seen it, and do comment and let me know what you think. But it's interesting because binding doesn't always have to be just a verbal agreement or a promise or a contract, because it can also be done through gifts, given to you to wear or to have in your home that function as kind of a talisman. And I feel like this needs a podcast all of its own, so I won't go any further today. But I will mention that whatever gift I was given that was created by the hand of the narcissist, I had an intuition and a feeling like I needed to get rid of it. And not only did I need to get rid of it, but I needed to destroy it. Now, I'm not in the habit, by the way, of destroying anybody's gifts to me. In fact, I cherish things that are given to me by the people that I love and care about. So this was particularly uncomfortable for me, but I was compelled to burn or destroy these gifts. I have no idea why I had no idea at the time. Now I know why. On the surface, they seem like, lovely, innocent gifts, and yet I felt something dark and sinister about them. A survivor on my episode 3 of Resident Evil actually spoke about the talismans that he was given by his wife of 30 years. She had them all around the house and he was wearing one, and it was a spell to bind them together. And when we don't know basically the narcissist's intention for us, we're disempowered. But when we do know that whatever intent they've got for us is not good, then we have the power to gain our autonomy back and say no to whatever they're trying to put on us. Don't forget that you are powerful. Don't fear their forces because you've got power. When you got the light, you have the power. Get behind me, Satan, kind of thing. And they can get behind you. In fact, they can go off to wherever they came from. And I'll tell you, it's not from above. So even though the narcissist, can intend to keep you tied, you can have a very different intention. And they have power when you're asleep, when you're in the dark about what they're up to. But when you get the awareness, when you open your eyes and you bring light to it, when you bring light to this darkness, you will realize why they need to keep people sleeping. So I hope that this video has been helpful. If you'd like to help me out, then you can remember to like the video, share it with somebody that you think it might help me to get this message out to more people that might need it. And comment your thoughts down below if you resonate. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, sending love, and I will see you all again next time.